So I always get asked like, where do I spend my money on most of the time? And when I tell them that I invest in like coaching programs or invest in coaches, firstly, they think I'm a little bit crazy. And number two, they think I'm even crazier when I tell them the amount of money I've allocated to coaches and programs. Okay, and literally like for this year, I invested slightly more than 90,000 just literally this year alone in coaches and business coaching programs and masterminds and things like this, right? In this video, I'm going to share with you exactly what I kind of like invested in and the 5 main reasons why I do it as well, right? So if you're new to this channel, my name is Benjamin Ong and I'm the CEO of 2XYC, and created this channel because there's a lot of financial advisors out there that are either broke, making tons of money, but yet unhappy. And I hope that some of the lessons that I've learned while documenting my own process and journey will be able to help you become happier, purposeful, and wealthy. So like I mentioned, I invested 9,000-ish this year in 2022, and I have like different areas that I invested in. One of it is I have a health coach. It's about like 20,000. That's the one. He's the guy that really helps me to get me in shape, make sure that I, do my workouts, make sure that I'm really eating clean and not, getting rubbish food and bad foods and stuff like that. And the reason why I invested in a health coach, in fact, this is my second year with him, and the reason for that is because my first year when I started to run like 2XYC and my own business, I placed a lot of time and energy into the business, obviously, because we're thinking of like how to make money, how can we survive and not go bankrupt and all that stuff. And therefore, as a result, health took sidestep, neglected that quite badly, if you ask me. And obviously, there's a lot of side effects and a lot of repercussions where you don't take care of your health. And I'm not talking about just like being overweight. And in fact, my weight shot up to like 3 figures, right? I think that was the breakthrough that I didn't want it. But it went up to, I think it was about 104 kg, and it was pretty bad, right? And then obviously I have like eczema. I start to have all these unpleasant kind of like conditions that I've never had before in my life start popping out, right? And it was really putting me in a very painful kind of state. So I decided, you know what, screw this, let me invest back in my health again. And a lot of people are probably thinking like, hey, just work out, what's the big deal, right? Or like just go for a run and jog, like, you should have more discipline, more willpower, blah, 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 blah. But if you ever, and especially with an advisor, right? Like, like when you're running business, it's so hard. It's not easy, right, to really show up. And especially when you are like fat, right? And when you're in that kind of vicious, I guess I had a kind of vicious mindset back then where it was just very hard for me to get out of it, right? Just a lot of self-degradation. I just feel like, I'm not good enough. I just feel like this is no use, etc., right? So when I invested in a health coach, this allows me, he brought me back up to my feet, really getting me start to slow baby steps, getting me faster to my results. And I lost more than that 10 kg in a year. And then like what's more important is that I was a lot stronger, I was a lot healthier, I had a lot more energy and productive, which allows me to work more, right? So that's kind of like, one of the areas that I invested in is really in a health coach that takes care of like all my nutrition and diet and everything else, right? So that's number one. So the second area that I invested in a couple of coaches. One was very, very fantastic in terms of like program creation, systems building and everything else. And then the other is an amazing marketing coach. And in fact, I see him beyond just a marketing coach, right? He's more like a life coach to me as well, that really handles my mindset, gets me back on track. Every time I kind of like go into a negative state or feel fearful even. And yes, there are times that I still feel fearful and sometimes even anxiety as well. And, I speak to him about it and he really coached me back on my mindset and make sure that I'm really on track, right? And really sometimes even call me out on my bullshit with the excuses that I make sometimes, right? So that's the main bulk of the money. Then of course, there's another one that's a smaller sum, less than 10. It has a lot to do with marketing and copywriting kind of like program and modules where I learn how to write better, purely because like first of all, I'm not the best like at language generally speaking yet. I don't like to say that myself, but like as of now, I'm not really the best. I'm not the best at articulating, or especially worse if I have to put it out in writing, right? So I force myself to really learn that so that I can improve and deliver the message that I want in a more succinct and concise way, right? These are kind of like the areas that I invested in, and it amounts to slightly more than 90,000, right? So a lot of people, when they hear this, they are thinking like, first of all, it's really, really a lot of money. And I can really be honest with you, I don't deny that it is a lot of money. I can also tell you that before I decided to go and invest this amount of money, I was very, very fearful, right? I was also very, I wouldn't say I'm skeptical, but I just fearful, because everybody has these thoughts of like, especially if you're if you're invested in programs, workshops and all that stuff, right? You spend 3, 4, 5K, like you always have this fear that, okay, will you get back your money, right? Will you get an ROI on this investment that you put in? So I did have the kind of fears at the start, and I overcome it. And I'll share with you a lot more later on like, how did I do that, right? So that's kind of like that idea here and why, and these are things that I invested in, right? So now it's really for me to share like, and I don't think I ever shared this before, but like, I'm going to share with you, like the 5 reasons why I even invest in like coaching programs or in coaches in the first place, right? So the first reason is investing into coaching and programs and everything else, right, buys back more time. So I have very strong beliefs about time, right? And that time is the only asset that once we spend it, like we can never ever get it back. So for example, like if you've been watching this video and watching me talk for the last few minutes, right, that few minutes will never ever happen again. Right, it will never ever happen again. Like the time is just gone, and this is why I appreciate if you're watching this. I really do respect your time a lot as well, and that's why like I really have strong beliefs about time. Right, we can never ever get it back again. So if we understand this entire concept, right, then the fastest way to kind of like buy back more time, in that sense, is buying information, right? So one of the fastest way to buy back more time is to buy more information, right? Because when you have more information, you kind of like buy the information, you buy the skill sets, the beliefs and everything else, and you actually accelerate your process, right? Because you gain immediate insights into the problems or into certain solutions that might have taken the other coach or the other person, right? Probably a few years or even 3 to 5, even 10 years of experience that's ahead of you. Not forgetting the number of mistakes that were made by this particular person that you're learning from that might have been costly when he or she is doing it. And therefore, like if you really think of it from the angle, by buying information, you are essentially buying back time. And once this is like done over and over again, repeatedly over the months and years, you will inevitably be way ahead, right? Squeezing like, 12 years of knowledge and skill sets into 3 years, for example. So if you really drill down the equation, right? And let's talk about like, in order for you to have more income, or for anyone that wants to earn income, there's always one thing that must be placed into it. And that thing is time. No matter whether it's active or like even passive and to a certain extent, right? Like there's still that element of time that's required to be invested into these areas, right? Like if let's say you want to earn 20,000 a month as an advisor, then you need to put in the time to earn that 20,000. And the funny thing here is that if today someone, so kind of like the equation is like time equals to money in that kind of like, that's the whole point, right? And if today someone hacks into your bank account, your POSB account, and they take away, 100,000 out of nowhere, and you can never ever get it back, how will you feel? You'll probably feel peace, right? I ask this question to so many people. They'll feel angry, they feel peace, they'll feel like they'll call police, they'll scold you, whatever it is, and they're just so tilt and annoyed and angry because you took away their 100,000, right? But yet, when someone comes in and speak to you halfway, interrupts your work and speak to you for the next 30 minutes, for some reason or another, we don't feel as angry as someone who have taken like our $50,000 or $100,000. And that's a funny thing, right? Because like time equal to money. And even if you can argue and people can talk about like passive income, etc., but hey, you need to first put in time to decide where you want to put your money in, right? And you have to decide which company, you have to research, even if like which company you want to put your money in. So that still requires time. If you understand this, then time is like really, really most valuable kind of asset. And that when you buy back information, expertise and everything else, you're really kind of like, consolidating other people's experiences and your learnings, right, into a shorter period of time, which accelerates your income and everything else further. And therefore you're buying back time, right? And this is the reason why some people accelerate and move ahead a lot faster than people who don't invest in themselves, because on this entire concept of buying back more time, right? And here's a good one. At least I think it's a good one that been shared with me by one of my friend as well, a very, very good friend of mine. And there is that one of the belief statements that might serve you well is that there's a difference between 10 years of accumulated experience, 10 years of experience versus 10 times 1 year of experience. And this entire kind of like belief statement is that anyone can be living the same experience, stay stagnant at where they are at, but for a long duration of time. So they're living the same 1 year of experience over and over again. Just because they say that they have 15 years of experience, first of all, you need to understand, like, you need to define what kind of experience they had, right? Because they could have been 15 times 1 year of the same experience, right? Versus accumulated, kind of like compounded kind of experience, right? And they might be 15 years in the business, but they are still receiving dividends of 1 year worth of experience, right? Or the same level of experience, right? It's just kind of like the concept of like compounded interest versus simple interest in a sense, right? So, like at the end of the day, this is really like how I look at it. This is one of the reasons why I invested as well into information, expertise, beliefs, and everything else. Because, the truth is, we can only make the right decisions to move forward in life faster only if we have the necessary and relevant information. And only then, we can really make better decisions along the way. Okay, so that's number one. Now, number two is acquiring skill sets and beliefs. So the gift of entrepreneurship, or especially when let's say you are in business, advisory business, you're self-employed or whatever it is, right? It's the acquisition of skill sets and beliefs. If you look at when you first RNF or when you first get into the industry, and then you look all the way in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and if your income has always been increasing, then you start to realize that your skill sets has also been improving. There are certain beliefs that you have right now that you didn't have in the past when you first started the industry. So you realize that your income increases as your skill sets and beliefs increases, right? Maybe you've been listening to others, maybe you've been hearing your top producers, kind of like what are they thinking, etc., right? And this is really just how like the game is like, right? And if today you're not getting enough appointments or you are struggling to have appointments, then maybe your skill set of knowing how to prospect or prospecting in whatever methods might not be great or might not be good enough. So therefore, then the idea here is to acquire the skill set of knowing how to prospect such that you will never be afraid of running dry of appointments or leads and all that stuff. Or if let's say your rejection rates are high in terms of closing, then you have a sales closing skill set deficit, right? You have a deficit in that. And the faster you learn, the more you go in depth in terms of your sales closing, the more practice, the better you will get. Or if you're a manager or director, if your team isn't productive or isn't doing well, or like people are leaving your agency, then they have a skill set deficit, right? Of knowing how to exactly manage, train, and retain these advisors in your agency. So therefore, you lack that skill set. And that if you look at it I look at it sometimes as a game, right? Like, okay, cool. In order for me to level up to like MapleStory, right? To second job, third job, whatever it is, I need to acquire certain skill sets, right? I need to start learning. I need to go through the grind. I need to get this and that. And then as I start acquiring all these skill sets, I get more powerful along the way. And this is really like how it is, in this entire game of entrepreneurship and business, or even as a self-employed or as an advisor, right? This is really how it is. And if you ask me, if you talk about skill sets and beliefs, these are also like, to me, skill sets and beliefs are also one that is usually a lot more permanent, right? Like you can lose your income, people can take away your license, people can, you can be put in jail and then you come out 3 years later or whatnot, but like nobody can take away the skill set, right? Nobody can take away your train of thought and the way you think. Like no one, right? And as long as your skill sets and everything else is permanent and you kind of like know and how and your beliefs are firm and grounded and everything else, even if like your external reality doesn't reflect that, like you have no money and everything else, you can be sure that when you have these skill sets, the money will come in a lot faster than others, right? So because I'm a believer that your inner reflects your outer, and inner talks about skill set, mindset, everything else. And if that is strong in the first place, then your reality will follow suit. Okay, so that's that. And I think the second part to this is kind of like when you acquire, that's the skill set portion, right? But when you acquire beliefs, it's also like I mentioned just now, it's kind of like learning from mistakes and experiences. Because like look at advisory business, right? That you're in. There are a ton of ways to be successful in any career or in any industry for that matter. But there are only a few mistakes or pitfalls that will hinder you from success or be the cause of your downfall. And to me, one of the greatest value that you can get from investing in coaches or people that you aspire to be or model after is by observing, learning, and understanding the mistakes made by these giants, right? Made by these coaches, and allow it to serve as a red flag or warning sign, right? And it serves me a lot as well because like, it allows me to kind of like know how to avoid certain pitfalls or certain holes in the ground. And a lot of people feel like, okay, success is about doing a lot of things right, and then you get there faster, right? The more things you do right, the faster you get there, which is true. But on the other flip side, it's also, you can look at it, and I look at it through this lens of like, the less mistakes I make, the faster I'll get there, right? Because there are certain mistakes that are severe and grave to the extent that, it just goes down and then it's very, very hard for you to come out. It wastes a lot more time, right? And that's kind of like the big idea here when you learn from other people's mistakes and experiences. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that you don't make any mistakes, but at least the information creates some form of awareness for you. So, that's kind of like sums up the second reason on why I invest in coaching, because this because of the acquisition of skill sets and beliefs. Okay, now the third one, it's the reason why is also what we call like the constant redistribution of value, right? So when I learn all these beliefs and I start to adopt all these perspective and skill sets, even in terms of marketing, sales, and everything else, I can teach, share, and pass on this valuable information and insights to the marketplace and clients, right? It is like take this now for example, right? Like, because of the very fact that I invested in all these things before, I went through the journey and therefore be able to be here right now to share with you how that journey looks like, and hopefully it's really of some value to you so they have better perspective, insights, and everything else, right? And like this not only applies for especially on our clients, right? Where I teach our higher tier kind of advisors this kind of perspective, time management, etc., productivity stuff that can really help them to reach their goals faster. But it's also talking about a community, about just people in general that I can just really give back this value just like yourself, right? Because there's always this saying, right, that the amount of income that you and I earn is a reflection of, number one, how valuable we are, which is how valuable we are, right? Which reflects the potential amount of money to be earned. And number two, how much of this value we redistribute or distribute back to others, which is by serving other people well. So I can be the most valuable person, I can learn a lot of things, I can know a lot of things, and I know the solution to a lot of things, for example, right? And that first determines how valuable I am as a person. But if I do not distribute this value, if I do not share or teach you or my clients or anyone else, then you're not going to pay me. No one is going to pay me. I'm not going to have money and whatnot, right? So it all comes back to first of all, how valuable we are. And that's the accumulation of skill sets, belief, experience, and insights. And then number two, how much of this value we actually distribute back to others by serving other people better and well in their areas, right? So, having invested in coaching and coaches and programs and stuff like that really allows me to always level up in terms of skill sets and beliefs so that I can redistribute back to others so that they can learn from it as well without paying 90,000, for example, like myself, right? So it's kind of the idea here. The third reason. The fourth reason, and if you look, the fourth reason is obviously, therefore my net worth or my income will inevitably increase over time, assuming I do the right things along the way, right? It's not always the case, but the chances of that is a lot higher, based on the first 3 points, right? Which is acquisition of skill sets, the redistribution of value, and obviously buying back more time. So one of the reasons why I decided to invest 90K and everything else, right, was because the year before I invested, I think it was about 50 or 60K, in the first year of business. And, we literally 10x on that investment. So I have a look at the track record in different multiple programs as well, usually 10x our investment basically into the program. Then I look at it in a way whereby, cool. So I think this gives me the kind of certainty that even if I invest 90K, 100K or whatever it is, I will get my money back, purely not because the program is fantastic or is the best, but because I know and I believe myself that I'll make sure that happens. I will make sure that I will learn everything from the program and get the things I need out of the program, right? So that's kind of the big idea here that allows me to overcome that uncertainty and fear of investing so much money into programs, right? So that's kind of the big idea for point number 4. Number 5 is just a very simple one. It's just being congruent, right? To me, I find it kind of hard to tell people hey, you can join a coaching program for advisors, but if I don't have a coach, then it's kind of weird, right? It's I'm coaching you and I believe that coaching is important and that you should have a coach to really help you get there faster, but yet at the same time, I don't have a coach myself. And that's kind of weird, right? So I just find it very, very hard and I think a little bit incongruent in that sense. And it's just hard for me to tell people to join my coaching program if I don't have a coach or if I don't do the same thing myself, right? Because I think law of image and the law of mirror is important, right? If I want my clients and our advisors to have a coach and to have us, I first need to have my coach myself, right? If I want my clients to get results and do well, I first need to do the same in my own coaching program when I'm learning from others, right? If I want my prospects or my customers or advisors to invest huge sums of money in themselves And in our program, right, I first need to do this myself. I first need to go through this myself. If not, I wouldn't be able to understand their fears. I wouldn't be able to understand like how they feel, etc. if I did not go through this myself. So that's like point number 5. The reason number 5 is basically just being congruent. So yup, these are literally like the 5 reasons why I invest in coaching programs and really truly believe in it. Now, that being said, I need to make a disclaimer and a caveat to this, which is not all coaching programs are fantastic. Like there are some that is just not worth the money at all. And this doesn't mean that you should just go for every coaching program, right? There are certain things that you want to assess and go through before you go for any coaching programs, right? Like for example, do you trust this person? And number 2, do they solve a problem that you have? Right? And that's kind of like, I just want to put a disclaimer up here, not saying that you should just go for any other coaching program that you encounter, okay? Because sometimes information overload is also another issue, right? But by and large, generally speaking, like this is just purely based on my own experience. Like if you want faster results and results that is higher in quantum and everything else, then I personally believe that it's a necessity to invest in programs or look at it from a point of like investing in yourself, right? Like skill sets, beliefs, and everything else to become a better person, to become one that is of higher standards. I mean, the sad truth is also sometimes like most people want things fast, but they're also not willing to pay for it in a sense. So like if you want more information, you want things faster, but there's a price to pay for that, right? That being said also, like just because, like make no mistake, right, that there's still a ton of hard work involved. You don't just invest in a coaching program and then like hope that you get results. Like you hope that you get results. No, right? It doesn't work that way. It still requires a lot of work. But because of the very fact that they provide the resources, and although you still require to put in the work, it just means that you're working in the right direction and you'll get there a lot faster, right? It's kind of like energy of like you want to climb Mount Everest. You can literally try it first time and then like do your own way on a track that has never been done before, or like you follow a Sherpa that really knows the way up there, right? You still need to put in the work, but it's a lot easier in that sense, right? It's a lot simpler in that sense, right? This is how I probably, want to share this with you and how I just want to wrap this up for this video. Okay, so again, this is my own personal beliefs and just sharing what has served me well. Just want to share this and hope that you guys get lots of value out of this. Okay, so lots of love and I'll see you guys in the next video.